All right, so let's get started once again. And what we're going to do, I want to introduce you guys to a few topics. Sorry, so I want to introduce you guys to, so we're going to go through some of the examples in the book. I want to introduce you all to a certain concept that's going to be very important to what we're doing in philosophy, so moral philosophy. So that there's a concept of a thought experiment. And related to the concept of a thought experiment is the concept of something that a philosopher named John Rawls described as reflective equilibrium. So reflective equilibrium is the way we tend to do ethics. There's basically two things that we do when we do ethics. We come up with a theory or a principle, right? So we come up with a moral theory or a moral principle. And then what we have to do to try and determine whether that theory or principle is true is we have to do a thought experiment, or we have to test it by thinking about how that theory or principle relates to real sort of world scenarios. So we test our theory or principle against the real world and see if our real world scenario disproves or supports our theory. And then usually the way things work is we then go back to our moral principle, we modify it, we then test it again by thinking through various moral issues to see whether those moral issues confirm or disconfirm our theories. So a thought experiment is you just think about some scenario and you say, okay, well, what about this? What about, is murder, or is killing wrong? Right? So say someone proposes a principle, killing is wrong. Right? So that's our moral principle, killing is wrong. All right, so then what we need to do is test it. Okay, well no talking guys, last session. You test that principle by thinking about a scenario. Okay, well what if someone is trying to kill you? Is killing okay if someone's trying to kill you? Do you guys agree? Yes. Okay, so now what do we have to do? We have to go back here and revise our principle, right? So our original principle was version 1, killing is wrong. All right, now version 2 of our principle is killing is wrong unless someone is trying to kill you. Okay, so now we have a second version of our principle. We go back to another thought experiment to test it. Can you come up with any exceptions, right? So this is our principle. Killing is always wrong unless someone's trying to kill you. Are there anything that can disprove this theory?
If there's another alternative than killing them.
Okay, so we might come up to version 3. Killing is wrong unless someone's trying to kill you, and the only thing you can do to kill them is, or the only thing you can do to stop them is to kill them. Go back around. What might be a way of disproving the new theory? I know.
Like, say if the doctors have to put somebody down because they're dying, or they on a deathbed, so if people decide to put a plug or something, that's killing somebody.
Okay, so killing is wrong unless someone's trying to kill you, with the exception that was mentioned, or the person is dying and wants to be killed. Now we'd have to get something a little more technical. What John Al mentioned didn't know a difference between a person who's conscious and able to say they want to be killed and someone who's unconscious. So we might say, well, if a person is dying and wants to be killed, or they're unconscious, and so we could give some other exceptions. Okay, so now we've got our principle again. Test it. Are there any other exceptions? Death penalty? Is that what you said? Okay, so death penalty is a controversial one, as some of these are, but maybe we add death penalty. So killing is wrong. Now we've got 4, D4, which includes death penalty.
I mean, they kill somebody else.
But that's an execution, so that's technically murder?
Well, it's not. We're calling it killing, though. So I didn't use the word murder. I used killing. So it's a killing.
Killing is murder, though.
No, killing is not. So killing is just ending a life.
How is it
All
not?
right, guys, there's way too much talking. I want this class is discussion-based, but it can only be discussion-based if one person is talking at a time. I will get you next. I'm still talking with this gentleman. What's your name?
I'm not trying to debate, but I'm trying to understand
Yeah,
what
it's
you're
not.
trying to say.
What was your name?
Oh, Denzel.
Denzel, okay. So killing is different from murder in that killing, the definition of killing is ending a life, right? Killing is simply ending a life. Murder is an unjust killing. So animals can be killed, whether animals can be murdered is a different question, which we're not talking about yet.
Now I see what you're saying.
Okay. So we've got a new principle, which is that killing is wrong unless someone's trying to kill you. The only thing you can do to stop them is to kill them, or the person is dying and wants to be killed, or they killed someone else. Now so that's our new principle. We have to go back and test it again. What are you doing again?
Isn't that kind of, don't it kind of defeat itself though? It's kind of like an oxymoron on this, or it's hypocritical. That's a bad word, I would say.
In what way?
Somebody killed somebody else, so you kill them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that kind of like?
All right. So
Yeah.
all right.
That's more like, that's vengeful. Like, that's more. I don't think that's moral, man.
Okay. So I don't want to get distracted by debating the moral status of any of these. Right now, I'm just illustrating a point that the way we have to do moral philosophy is by constantly revising our theory in light of a thought experiment, right? And the way we do that is by trying to find counter evidence. So, a little note. Well, I should have done this first, but we'll do it now. Okay. So, if you guys look here, and see the point of this in a second. So the rule is here. It says if a card shows an even number on one face, then its opposite face is blue. So if you want to test whether this rule is true or not, because the moral principles, what we were just talking about, is testing them. So we need to know how to test something. And this relates to science as well. This is sort of how you do science, a little quantitative science. What 2 cards should you turn over if you want to test whether this rule is true or not?
8 and blue.
All right, so 8 and blue. How many people agree? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like about 10-ish. Any other suggestions? You want to turn over 2? Think. You want to add or?
Yeah, all of them, so you
You can only turn over 2 cards.
you can turn over 5 and 3.
5 in green. Any other suggestions? Anyone agree with 5 in green?
It works. I didn't even think of it that way. I thought of it as like if you fold it in half. Like the 8 is the side of the blue, so if it's folded in half,
Oh.
blue would be opposite.
No, sorry. Imagine these are 4 cards that you're actually going to flip over.
You can turn over any.
You can turn over any. There's a number on one side and a color on the other. You can flip over 2 of these cards. So these 2 cards have colors on the other side. These 2 have numbers on the other side. So when you try and test the rule, if a card has an even number on one face and on its opposite face it's blue.
You can literally turn over any of the 2.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what the real answer is. So this is an experiment that social psychologists have done.
On a set of 4 cards. Each card has a number on one side and a color on the other side. we would like to test the truth of the following statement. If a card shows an even number on one face, then its opposite face is blue. Which card or cards must you turn over to test the truth of this proposition? Of course, you could turn over all 4 cards, but what is the most efficient way to do it? Click on your answer.
I didn't know it did that. Okay, let's try 5 in blue. That was a popular answer, right? 8 in blue. 8 in blue, sorry.
Red.
You're wrong. This is not the most efficient way to solve this puzzle.
You're right.
Are you sure the blue needs to be turned over? Try again, or click here for the correct answer.
You turn over.
Try 5 and green.
Just try 5, bro. The color is already.
All right, what's your second choice?
Oh.
8.
8 and green.
8 in green?
You're correct. Only 10% of people found the correct answer in Wason's study.
All right, so the first time around, only 10% of the people are going to get the correct answer. Psychologists have done a lot of studies with this.
If a card shows an even number on one face, then its opposite face is blue. This proposition is an if-then statement, and the only way it can be invalidated is by having a card which has an even number on one face and which is not blue on the other face.
Right, so the reason the blue card is wrong is because the rule doesn't say anything about there having to be the number. So a blue could be either one according to the rule. Blue could be an odd number or an even number. But if you flip the green over and you see a even number, then you know the rule is false. So there's the essential way to think about this, the important way of thinking about this is in terms of 2-card solutions. There's only one 2-card solution because these, 8 in green, 8 and green are the only choices that can falsify the rule. Or another way of saying that is disprove the rule. So 8 and green are the only choices that can disprove the rule. Blue can confirm the rule or prove it, or it can say, okay, you haven't found any evidence against the rule if you flip over blue, but you can't be absolutely certain it's the right rule. So this is actually an important feature of science, is that the way we do science is we try and disprove a theory. Proving a theory isn't that useful because oftentimes there are lots of theories, right? So say someone says, Newton comes along and says, here's my theory of gravity. And I say, well, actually I think there's a giant monkey at the center of the earth and he sucks things to him because he's magical or something. The way you want to do that, those 2 theories have the same sort of confirming evidence if you're on planet Earth, right? What you need to do is you need to come up with an experiment that would disprove the giant monkey theory and also be compatible with the actual theory of gravity. So science works by disconfirmation, and just as kind of a side note, something that is scientifically true is simply something that hasn't been disproven yet. Now, most scientific theories are also confirmation does play some role. So in theory of evolution, scientifically true, what that means is it hasn't been disproven, and there's also a lot of confirming evidence as well. So this was a little bit of a digression, but it's related to the thought experiment stuff over there. The point is, when you're coming up with a thought experiment, what you want to try and do is find a scenario that disproves your moral principle. So if you can find a scenario that disproves a moral principle, you know your moral principle isn't a good one. You need to go back to the drawing board. Finding an example that proves your moral principle wouldn't be helpful at all. I mean, it would tell you something, but it's not conclusive by any stretch. And we'll see a practical example of this in a second. Okay, so in chapter 1, what you'll find is there's 3 examples. There's baby Teresa. There is, the second one is Jody and Mary, and the third one is Tracy and Latimer. And these examples are slightly different. In the in the baby Teresa example, baby Teresa is, she's born, but she only has a brain stem. So the higher capacities of her brain, the larger frontal lobe and all the neocortex and all that stuff is missing. That's essentially what makes us human, our capacity for concepts and thought and language and all that stuff. The brain stem is sometimes called the reptilian brain. It's evolutionarily much earlier. So reptiles, for example, don't have the other parts of the brain, and lower mammals or less complex mammals have much smaller neocortexes and things like that. Okay, so she has a brain stem. The brain stem is responsible for keeping her lungs going and her heart beating, so she's alive. These sort of various automatic processes. But as far as we can tell, as far as we know, she doesn't have any other sort of things that we normally associate with being alive in terms of conscious awareness, stuff like that. So what the parents want to do is they want to kill her. I won't use the term murder, because that's really what's at stake here. Is it murder to kill her? So they want to kill her. They want to end her life and donate her organs to be transplanted. If they don't kill her, if they just let her die naturally, what will happen is that her organs will degrade to the point where they're not useful for organ transplant. Okay, so the question is it morally okay to kill baby Teresa in this circumstance and donate her organs? So I want you guys to talk about this with someone next to you. If there's not someone right next to you, you can do it with a group of 3 people. Otherwise, just talk about it with 1 person. And discuss whether you think it's okay to kill Teresa in these circumstances. But more importantly is why, because we need a moral theory or principle that we're going to test.
I have a question. Without all that, like you're talking about, just the brainstem.
Guys, no talking in.
Without a brainstem, does she even know that she's alive? Or does she even...
Well, I mean, so an infant wouldn't know either way that they were alive. There's no reason to think they would. But certainly without a brainstem, there's no reason to believe that she would have any concept of herself or any conscious experience whatsoever. So, yeah.
I read that.
Hold on, guys.
I read the chapter last night, and it said she died 9 days later.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did not 9 days later.
So she was going to die anyway. So there are various features that you can consider. You can consider her mental capacities. You can consider the fact that she was going to die. You can consider the fact that by doing so, you saved lives.
I go back to what I said about the killing the person if they're about to die, they're on the dead anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So what I want you guys to do is come up with your theory as to why it's okay, your explanation, and then what we'll try and do is test it.
Would you say she has just brain or she has everything but
All right, so discuss that with your partner. Let me know what your answer is. And you have about 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
So,
He wouldn't be able to do it. It's not going to be, somebody, you know what I'm saying?
Or if it's hard to then you're treating it like a brain.
Eventually, if she's going to brain,
But I mean, and if the argument, this is more than just the argument.
That's like, oh my God. Did we already?
that would be
We
better.
already. Yeah, we already.
So, what is your answer to this?
Okay, then you have to do a little circle thing. So our moral theory is it's okay. No, it doesn't look like it. Is the argument against what you said.
You know what they can do now? I mean, support something that you believe, like they can extract say that
Well, you do, like you said,
Okay, so an example that about this. You're gonna
do the same thing.
he can come in whenever he wants. He just gonna see another dude in bed. That's he paid for 2 hours. So like, you know the house they wasn't grand, they paid for the house before. And I guess he was like, oh, I'm gonna have to work on something. That's why it makes it. So he like, so it's like,
Okay, and then another argument. Yeah, how long? Yeah. And then you can also say like
All right, guys. So, I need to get some moral theories here on the board. Or did you just have a question?
Oh, no.
Okay, so I need a moral theory or principle to explain your answer. So who wants to give me an answer?
So I think that the parents were right. Or
Guys,
do you want, are we doing where we do the thought experiment?
so I just want to get some principles on the board
Oh,
first.
okay.
So do you think the parents were right or wrong?
I thought they were right.
So you think it was okay for them to want to do it?
Well, you never finished the story, we don't know what the parents did.
Well,
They couldn't.
court intervened and they couldn't, and the baby died.
It's in the state, or.
All right, so what's your reason? So, okay, because, what's your reasoning?
I think out of one life, they could have saved multiple lives.
Guys, please stop talking.
With the organs, the baby would have been able to donate, and she wouldn't have, I mean,
All right, so,
wouldn't have had the built,
So-
like a fulfilled life.
so is your principle, it's okay to kill when you can save multiple lives?
No, I think it is okay to kill when,
All right, there should only be one person talking.
the life that you're taking isn't, I don't know, it's hard to say because there's so many different scenarios that can play into it. I think it is okay if the person or child or baby is already like on that incline of death.
It's okay to kill if the person is going to die soon.
And that was confirmed. The baby was going to die.
Yeah, all right, so,
Yeah, you can't live without a brain.
Did it say how much time the baby
You
had?
really can't.
so they didn't know for certain, but they knew it was reduction. Okay, so this is our first principle. It's okay to kill if the person is going to die soon. Courtesy of
Alex.
Alex, all right. Brandon and then David.
I agree with that. You know, if they don't realize, like, if they're just born with brainstem, they don't realize that they're alive, then there's, you know, no feeling bad for killing them because they don't even know they're being killed either. And they feel pain with brainstem,
All right, so I need you to specify principle, because it has to be a bit precise if we're gonna test it.
Because all your pain receptors are in your brain.
So is your theory it's okay to kill if the person can't feel pain?
No, not at all. But let's say you can have a brain transplant. I don't know if they do that, but
No,
if there's a possibility of saving a life that way, then it is.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay, so I need a principle. Do you have, Brandon, do you have principle for me? Because you said a few different things. It's okay to kill if you don't, it's fine.
If they don't quite know that they're alive. You know, if they're
Okay.
just a veggie, you know, sitting there.
All right, so if they don't know there's alive, it's
I
different
wouldn't want
from.
to be alive in that situation. I would prefer someone to kill me.
You just call it a veg die anyway.
All right,
You
so
just call it a veg.
A vegetable, they don't move.
That's what you call it. A real life?
Yeah.
all right, so I'm gonna. So the first thing you said is it's okay to kill if the person doesn't know they're alive. Now, that's obviously very easily falsifiable because
You
all
have for
Okay,
reasons,
we appreciate it.
for their organs, and, you know, for research and for benefit that way.
and
You're not just killing them to kill them out of spite, you know.
well, okay. So what I was gonna say is people don't know they're alive if they're in deep sleep as well, so that would be okay. But but we're gonna say brain dead and there's a good reason. Now, obviously some of these things are a little ambiguous. Any other? What was your name? Oh, I said David was next, and I'll get you.
So for the most part, I kind of agree with those, but I mean, like you said, you want to
Brandon and Andrew, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, please don't talk when other people are
My
talking.
bad.
If, really, I'm just gonna ask you guys to come sit in the front if that keep talking. I can't focus on other people.
But like you said with the equilibrium or whatever, you kind of want to find an argument against it. So I guess, I mean,
All right, so we're not testing yet.
Oh, we're not testing it?
We're gonna get there in 1 second. Let's get one.
Okay.
Did you have a reason for why you thought?
Pretty much the same exact thing. Like, she's gonna die anyways, and like, her organs would have done something useful rather than deteriorated.
Okay, so there was a good reason too. She was gonna die soon. All right. Does anyone have something additional? So what did you want to say? What was your name? Eric.
Basically, you can't like carry out activities, emotions, thoughts, and feelings that's not living. So, you know, that's technically she's already dead. So,
Okay. Well, biologically she's alive. We wouldn't want to say that, but she's. One thing we might say is she's no longer a person, or the person is not there. But but I think that's covered by brain dead.
I don't know how to word it, but I don't think it's okay for the court to decide, but for the parents to say it's okay to do. Like, not the doctors, nobody else, I don't know.
All right. So that's a. All right. So it's okay for parents to decide. All right. So let's put a few of these criteria to the test. And I don't mean to pick on you when we inevitably find your theory is wrong, but just what it really shows is we have to be really precise. So this first one, let's do our sort of thought experiment thing, reflective equilibrium. We're starting with the principle, it's okay to kill if the person is going to die soon.
So like old people.
So does that mean that anyone who's so what if I have cancer and I'm probably going to die within 10 days or 9 days? Is it then okay for you to kill me?
I think with,
It depends on how your what's that? Your situation.
Okay.
And
So-
how bad you are.
Okay. Well, what do you mean by your situation? How bad you are?
Like it depends on because some people like the doctor can say you have cancer and you only have 2 months to live.
Yeah.
And some people bounce back from that and they end up living 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
After the doctor only said he only had 2
But
months to live.
so there is something called active dying where you know someone is going to die. So there are certain circumstances in which you know for absolutely certain that someone is going to die. They're essentially start the process. So what if I'm in the process of active dying, it's clear I'm going to die, is it okay for someone else to kill me? So right now we just need a yes or no, because we're doing our thought experiment. How many people think it's not okay to kill someone even if they're going to die within a few days?
I feel like these statements are way too general. Like,
Yeah.
Well, they may be, and we can take them into further precision, certainly, and we should. I think in general, we'll find that this moral principle is inadequate as it stands. It's not to say that the spirit of it is wrong, but as it stands, we generally don't think it's okay to kill people against their will, even if they're going to die soon.
See, there we added in that against their will.
Well,
That's not,
Yeah, no,
I
that's
meant
wrong,
for like,
yeah.
well, it's not included either, so anything that's not, put it this way, anything that's not explicitly stated is fair game. So I can add it in if you haven't put it in your principle.
could we change the statement?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. So now,
You just get to add it in.
the point is to change it. Okay, so now we put it through a thought experiment. The thought experiment is, what if someone is dying of cancer? We know they're going to die, but they don't want to be killed.
Then that would.
Okay, so now we have to revise our statement, right? So we've gone through one round of thought experimentation. Now we come up with a new statement, right? It's okay to kill a person if they're going to die soon
With their consent
with their consent.
and their order. I don't think it matters, not their organ at this point.
All right, so all right, so now we can try and put this
Well, that
principle.
would still be because an infant can't
Can't
consent
talk.
to that.
Okay,
What was
so-
their consent, was that?
All right, so now we need to think a little more carefully about this. So we need to go back to our philosophy lab, do another thought experiment, right? So baby Teresa's case isn't covered by this principle. Now, it seems like this principle is probably okay. Now, this is called euthanasia or assisted suicide. It's not currently legal in every state. There's a couple states it is legal. I would guess, certainly within 10 years, but maybe even less, it will be legal in every state. I would bet probably, if I had $100,000, I'd bet $100,000 in 10 years it'll be legal in every state. So, not that determines what's right and wrong, but just gives you a sense of where it's at. Okay, so this is probably true, but this also doesn't cover the case of baby Teresa, because baby Teresa hasn't given her consent. So, and it also doesn't cover cases in which a person is, say someone gets in a car accident and, they no longer have brain function and, they lose the function of everything but the brain stem. Or they're entirely brain dead, but they're being kept alive by breathing machines and heart pumping machines and all that stuff. I don't really know what all it is, but okay. So let's come up with another thought experiment. Person is in a car accident, they're brain dead. Is it okay to kill them without their consent? Not.
Well, that's why hospitals cover that. There's always the
Or next to
All right, so
or
if you sign so you can sign something that states what should be done, but there are cases in which you haven't signed a piece of paper. But again, the legality of it I know it's a little hard, but we have to separate the legal issues from the moral issues, because a lot of times laws are extremely immoral, right? When slavery existed in the United States, it was legal. Doesn't mean it was right. So, a lot of what we're going to be talking about are things that are legal that we think should be illegal, or things that are illegal that we think should be legal. So the law is not really that relevant. The question is, morally, is it okay to kill someone? Under what circumstances, right? So, is okay. So using the car example, one was in a car crash. They are now brain dead. They can't give their consent, but is it okay to kill them? All right, so why not?
because they don't have that voice to give their consent. What if they're in a coma for a while and then they get, people wake up?
Isn't brain dead different than coma?
Oh, brain dead, then you can't wake up. Okay, is there brain dead or they're in a coma?
So yeah, we know that there's no possibility that they'll ever regain
Okay,
brain
then
function.
I think the state,
What's that?
I think that comes back to the
That's according to legally, currently, but morally, what's an ideal scenario? Because there are moral implications to this, right? Because to keep someone alive costs a lot of money, so that's a moral issue. If you're keeping someone alive and it costs a lot of money, that money can be spent elsewhere.
I mean, maybe it's weird, but like my mom and I, we've talked about things like this, like if anything like that would ever happen.
Sure. So, I mean,
I don't know if anyone else have ever talked to.
So maybe so one thing is, you might consider changing the law to say everyone has to, as soon as you become 18, one of the things you have to do is sign a document that states what you want this to happen.
So how do you,
All right, guys, a little bit too much talking, a little bit too much. Need hands, need hands.
About the consent thing, my father died in November, and when we took him to the hospital, he originally wanted everything to be done that could be done. And then we overrode his consent as family because we wanted him to be comfortable until he died. So like, is that wrong that we changed his consent?
Was he was no longer conscious?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
And that's, but, I mean, he wasn't brain dead, he probably could have, he could still speak a little bit, but at the same time, like, I just feel like consent can always be overridden, especially in the medical field.
So that's the question. So it's okay to kill someone if the person is going to die soon with their consent, or they are brain dead, or they're in a lot of suffering and they can no longer give consent, right? So there's a lot of ways we could modify that. I think and as you can see, through this process, we have significantly improved our original explanation of this topic, and we can now think, better about a wider range of cases. So that's the process of reflective equilibrium. You have moral principle or theory, you try and come up with examples that would disprove it, and then in light of those examples, if they successfully disprove it, you modify your theory. If your example, if you can't, and if you and no one else can find a counterexample, then you say, okay, this is our best theory. So what time is it? It is. All right. 12:43. They'll let you guys out a few minutes early. So there is no class on Monday. Remember, you've got the writing assignments due on Sunday. If you have any questions, let me know.
it's Martin Luther King.
What?